I'm 35 years old. Married for 10 years. 2 kids under 10. The kind of life that doesn't look exciting from the outside but feels earned when you're living it. I used to think that meant I was doing something right. My wife, Emily, and I met in our early 20s. We grew up together in that quiet, unremarkable way, shared apartments, bad jobs, cheap furniture, then better jobs, a wedding, kids. There was never any huge drama between us. We argued about money, about parenting styles, about stupid stuff like dishes and whose turn it was to wake up with the kids. Normal things. I trusted her. Completely. I never once checked her phone. Never asked where she was twice. Never felt that tight feeling in my chest people talk about when they know something is wrong. My best friend, Ryan, has been in my life since high school. He's basically family. He stood next to me at my wedding. He was there when my dad died. He helped us move into our house. When I say I trusted him, I mean I trusted him with my life. A few years ago, Ryan and I started a small consulting business together. Nothing shady. Just side work. Because of that, he came over a lot. Sometimes late. Sometimes when I wasn't home yet. Emily would make coffee or pour a drink while they talked numbers. It felt domestic. Comfortable. I remember feeling proud of that, actually. Like, look at us, adults with real lives and real problems. Looking back, that's the part that hurts the most. Not that I miss red flags, but that everything felt so safe. So normal. There was no storm warning. No dramatic shift. Just a slow, quiet erosion I didn't notice until the foundation was already gone. If you asked me back then if I thought my wife could cheat on me, with him, I would have laughed. I would have told you watched too many movies. I wish I had been right. The changes didn't come all at once. That's why I didn't fight them. They slipped into our life like background noise. Emily started caring more about her appearance when Ryan was coming over for work. Not dramatically, just enough to register. A nicer sweater. Makeup on days she usually skipped it. I noticed it, then immediately scolded myself for noticing. Ryan started texting Emily directly instead of me. Just faster, she said. You're always busy. That made sense. Everything made sense if I wanted it to. Sometimes I'd walk into a room and the conversation would stop. Not in a guilty way. Just paused. Like they were mid-thought. I told myself I was imagining the tension because I was tired or stressed. There were laughs I wasn't part of. Inside jokes I didn't understand. A few times, Emily mentioned things Ryan had told her that he never mentioned to me. Personal things. Complaints. Frustrations. I felt a weird flicker of jealousy, and then shoved it down. I didn't want to be that guy. I trusted them. That was my identity. The chill husband. The loyal friend. The first time my stomach dropped was stupidly small. Emily left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. It lit up with a message from Ryan. I keep replaying last night. No emojis. No explanation. Just that. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it. I stood there staring at the screen like it was a foreign language. Then I did what I always did, I made an excuse. They probably talked about work. Maybe he meant a presentation. You're being paranoid. I didn't open the message. I put the phone face down and walked away. I remember feeling proud of myself for trusting my wife. That pride didn't last long. Because once the doubt exists, it doesn't leave quietly. After that message, I started noticing everything. The way Emily smiled at her phone. How Ryan avoided eye contact with me some days. How they both seemed nervous when we were all in the same room. I hated myself for watching them. For counting minutes. For wondering what they talked about when I wasn't there. I felt like I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. One night, Emily fell asleep on the couch. Her phone buzzed again. Same name. I didn't want to look. I swear I didn't. but my body moved before my brain caught up. Ryan, I hate pretending nothing happened. That was it. No ambiguity. No wiggle room. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I unlocked it. I wish I hadn't. But I also know I needed to. The messages weren't explicit. That somehow made it worse. They talked about missing each other. About how hard it was to go back to normal. About how they had to be careful for my sake. There was one message from Emily that burned itself into my brain. I love him, but what we have feels different. I sat there in the dark, reading those words over and over, like if I stared long enough they might rearrange themselves into something that didn't destroy me. I didn't wake her up. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there, holding her phone, realizing that my marriage had already ended. I just hadn't been informed yet. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the realization that they'd been living a whole emotional life together right in front of me, and I'd helped make it comfortable. I didn't sleep that night. Not a minute. Emily eventually woke up and asked why I was still on the couch. I lied. Said I couldn't shut my brain off. She touched my arm, concerned, affectionate, the same hand that had typed those messages hours earlier. I almost flinched. Lying next to her in bed felt unbearable, so I stayed up scrolling through nothing, replaying everything in my head. Every laugh. Every business meeting. Every time Ryan showed up with a bottle of wine like he belonged here. By morning I felt hollow. Not angry yet. Just empty. I went to work on autopilot. Answered emails. Sat through meetings. Smiled when required. The whole time, my mind kept looping back to one thought: how long? Weeks? Months? Longer? When I got home, Ryan's car was in my driveway. On business. I sat in my car for a full 5 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. I could have driven away. I thought about it. Just leaving. Letting them wonder. Instead, I walked inside. They were at the kitchen table with laptops open, sitting closer than necessary. When they saw me, there was a split second, just a flicker, where they both froze. That was all the confirmation I needed. Ryan stood up too fast. Hey man. We were just working. I finished for him. Emily wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I wasn't ready. I needed to understand the shape of what I was standing in. I made small talk. I poured myself a drink. I listened to them lie with terrifying ease. That night, after Ryan left, Emily tried to initiate sex. I felt my stomach turn. I told her I was tired. She looked relieved. That hurt more than rejection ever could have. 2 days later, I confronted Ryan first. Cowardly, maybe. But I needed to hear it from him. Alone. No Emily to soften things or rewrite history. I met him at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit on them. I didn't ease into it. I know about you and Emily. He went pale. Actually pale. His mouth opened, then closed. He stared at the table like it might save him. How much do you know? He finally asked. That question broke something in me. Enough, I said. How long? He rubbed his face. It wasn't supposed to happen. I laughed. It came out sharp and ugly. That's not an answer. 6 months, he said quietly. Maybe longer, depending on how you define it. I felt like I was going to throw up. He told me it started emotional. Complaining. Bonding. Feeling understood. Then one night after too much wine, it crossed a line. He swore he loved me. Swore he never meant to hurt me. I asked him why he kept coming to my house. He said, I didn't want to lose you. I told him he already had. I walked out before I did something I couldn't take back. That night, I confronted Emily. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet. I told her I knew everything. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just watched her face collapse. She denied it at first, reflexively. Then she cried. Then she admitted it. Then she tried to explain. She said she felt lonely. Said I was always tired. Said Ryan listened. Said it wasn't about sex at first. Said she never meant for it to go this far. I asked her if she loved him. She hesitated. That hesitation destroyed me more than a yes would have. I don't know, she said. I love you. But what I feel for him is different. I told her to stop. I couldn't hear any more. I slept in the guest room that night. Then the couch. Then eventually, I stopped sleeping much at all. The house felt haunted. Every room held a memory that now felt poisoned. Ryan stopped coming over. Emily asked what I wanted to do. I didn't have an answer. I was still trying to understand how my life had cracked open without making a sound. The days after the confrontation blurred together. I still had to wake up, make breakfast, drive the kids to school, answer emails. Life didn't pause just because mine had fallen apart. Emily acted like a different person. Quieter. Careful. Like she was walking through a minefield. She apologized constantly, sometimes through tears, sometimes in a flat, exhausted voice. She said she'd cut off contact with Ryan. Swore it was over. Promised counseling. Promised transparency. I nodded a lot. I didn't promise anything back. Inside, I felt split in half. One part of me wanted to believe her. Wanted my family to survive this. Wanted to go back to the version of myself who didn't flinch when his phone buzzed. The other part of me replayed her hesitation when I asked if she loved him. That pause lived in my chest like a weight. Ryan texted me once. A long message. Apologies. Regret. Brother, language. I didn't respond. I blocked him instead. Losing him hurt, but not in the way I expected. It felt like cutting off a dead limb. At night, I lay awake listening to Emily breathe. Sometimes she reached for me in her sleep. I stayed still. I felt cruel for it, then resentful that I felt cruel at all. I started questioning everything. Was I a bad husband? Too boring? Too absent? I dug through old memories looking for proof that this was somehow my fault. That search nearly broke me. A week later, Emily told me Ryan needed to come by. For business, she said quickly. Just to drop off documents. I won't be alone with him. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. You cannot be serious, I said. She looked embarrassed. Defensive. It's not like that anymore. I felt something hot and ugly rise in my chest. This is still my house. She backed down. Or so I thought. 2 days later, I came home early. His car was there. I didn't storm inside. I sat in my car again, same as before, heart pounding, hands numb. I realized with a kind of detached horror that this was becoming a pattern. When I walked in, Ryan was already leaving. Wouldn't look at me. Mumbled something about deadlines. Emily stood there, pale. I lost it. I yelled. I said things I didn't even know I was holding in. About betrayal. About humiliation. About how insane it was that he still crossed my threshold. She cried. Said she panicked. Said she didn't know how to untangle everything. Said she was afraid of blowing up the business too. I asked her who she was more afraid of losing. She didn't answer. That silence told me more than any confession. After that, something inside me shut down. I stopped asking questions. Stopped checking phones. Stopped trying to understand. It wasn't peace, it was numbness. We started couples therapy. We sat on opposite ends of the couch. She talked about guilt and confusion. I talked about betrayal and rage. The therapist nodded a lot and said words like rebuilding and process. I didn't feel like rebuilding. I felt like standing in the ruins, trying to decide whether it was even worth clearing the debris. Emily tried harder. Dinners. Notes. Apologies. She told me she loved me every day. I started wondering if love meant anything anymore. Some nights, I imagined leaving. An apartment. Shared custody. A quieter life with less pretending. Other nights, I watched my kids sleep and felt paralyzed by the thought of breaking their world. Ryan faded out of our lives, but his presence didn't. He was in every room. Every memory. Every doubt. I realized something terrifying. Even if Emily never spoke to him again, he would always be part of our marriage. And I didn't know how to live with that. Around the 3rd month after everything came out, people stopped asking how I was doing. Life around us moved on. Ours stayed frozen. Emily kept trying. Therapy. Transparency. She shared passwords without me asking. Told me where she was going, who she was with. On paper, she was doing everything right. But there was one question I couldn't stop thinking about. Why him? Not in a self-pitying way. Not because I thought I was better. But because he was so close to us. To me. Because she didn't just cheat, she rewrote the boundaries of my entire life. One night, after the kids were asleep, I finally asked her, "Do you miss him?" She looked tired. Older than she used to. "I miss who I was when everything felt simple." That wasn't an answer. Or maybe it was. I pressed. "If I hadn't found out, would you have stopped?" She cried. Hard. Couldn't speak for a while. That told me everything. I realized then that discovery hadn't ended the affair. Exposure had. And that difference mattered more than I wanted it to. After that conversation, I stopped seeing a future clearly. I could imagine functioning. I could imagine coexisting. But trusting? Feeling safe? Letting my guard down again? No. And I hated myself for that, because part of me still loved her. I started changing in ways I didn't like. I checked her phone when she wasn't around. Even though she'd never given me another reason. I watched her reactions too closely. Listened for hesitation in her voice. I became quieter. Sharper. Less patient with the kids. That scared me more than anything. One afternoon, my son asked why I didn't laugh as much anymore. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried. Emily noticed the change too. She asked if I was punishing her. If I was ever going to forgive her. I didn't know how to explain that forgiveness wasn't the problem. Trust was. Some nights, I slept next to her and felt absolutely nothing. Other nights, I felt everything at once: anger, longing, grief, desire, all tangled together until I couldn't tell one from the other. I missed my old self. The version of me who believed in people without bracing for impact. I started realizing that even if our marriage survived, I wouldn't be the same person inside it. That felt like another loss I hadn't prepared for. 6 months after I found out, I told Emily I needed space. Not a dramatic separation. No lawyers. Just distance. I moved into a small apartment nearby. Close enough to see the kids every day. Far enough to breathe. She cried. Asked if this was the end. I told her I didn't know. That was the most honest answer I had. Living alone was quieter than I expected. Lonely, yes, but also calmer. I slept better. Thought more clearly. Missed my kids constantly. Missed the idea of my marriage more than the reality of it. Emily and I talked. Carefully. Like people handling something fragile. Sometimes it felt like we were rebuilding. Sometimes it felt like we were just prolonging the inevitable. Ryan never reappeared. Not directly. But I heard about him through mutual friends. I asked them not to tell me anymore. Some days, I thought about reconciliation. About going home. About choosing the familiar pain over the unknown. Other days, I felt something close to peace. And that terrified me. Because it meant that letting go might actually be possible. It's been a year now. That sentence feels strange to write. A year since my life split in two, before and after. A year since I found out that trust can disappear in a single unread message. Emily and I are technically still married. Legally. Emotionally, it's harder to define. We never officially reconciled, but we never fully walked away either. We exist in this gray space where everything is careful and nothing is assumed. I go back to the house often. Dinners. Birthdays. School events. We function well for the kids. Maybe too well. From the outside, we probably look like we survived. But some things never healed. I can't hear Ryan's name without my stomach tightening. I can't see old photos from group trips without mentally editing him out. There are rooms in the house that still feel wrong: the kitchen table, the couch, the hallway where I once stood listening to them laugh together. Emily tells me she's different now. That she understands herself better. That she'd never cross that line again. I believe that she believes it. What I don't believe anymore is permanence. Or safety. Or the idea that love automatically protects you from being hurt. That loss of faith is quieter than anger, but heavier. We never moved back in together full time. Instead, we created something new. A shared routine. Split weeks. Family dinners twice a week. Therapy, together and apart. We talk more honestly now than we ever did before, which feels cruelly ironic. Sometimes, late at night, she asks if I think we'll ever be us again. I don't know how to tell her that the version of us she means doesn't exist anymore. There are moments of closeness, laughter, even tenderness. But there's also a distance I don't know how to cross, or if I want to. I've gone on a few dates. Nothing serious. She knows. It hurt her. I hated that it did, but I also needed to feel like my life wasn't over. The kids are okay. That's what I tell myself. They're loved. Supported. They don't know the details. I carry the weight of those for all of us. Some nights, I wonder if staying half-connected is kinder, or just slower damage. I don't know if this story has a clean ending. If you're reading this looking for closure, I don't have much to offer. What I've learned is this: betrayal doesn't just break relationships, it rewrites your understanding of reality. It teaches you that the people closest to you are capable of becoming strangers without warning. I still love Emily. In a way. I also resent her. Both things are true, and that contradiction is something I've had to learn to live with. I miss my best friend sometimes. Or at least who I thought he was. That loss feels stupid to admit out loud, but it's real. If there's a warning in all of this, it's not about checking phones or watching for signs. It's about boundaries. About not assuming closeness means safety. About understanding that trust, once broken, doesn't come back in the same shape. I'm not bitter. I'm not healed. I'm just changed. And some days that's the hardest part to accept.